Or do we do roll call first? Okay.
So this Policing Commission meeting is beginning at 7:01 on July 20th, 2023. And Chair Johns, if you would call roll.
Commissioner Dupuy,
Present.
Commissioner Locke,
Present.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Present.
Commissioner Downs,
Present.
and Commissioner Yu. So,
Commissioner Yu is out of the country and absent, so we're not expecting him tonight. One piece of business we should take care of is that, as is obvious, Member Downs is participating remotely. So Mr. Member Downs should just inform the commission and the public why he's participating remotely and announce if there's anyone in the room with him as we get started.
Be glad to do so. So I'm participating remotely because I'm traveling on business for the University of California, state agency representing the university and my department at the National Endowment of the Humanities Institute. And so I have posted the agenda. There is no one else in the room with me, and I will keep the camera on, and should someone enter the room, I will make sure that they appear on the camera.
Very good, thank you.
so should we go to the land acknowledgement now?
Yes.
And I know we discussed how to do this in the future as far as reading the land acknowledgements or who would read them, etc. Should we discuss that now or discuss that after I read this?
I mean, there's no hard and fast rule. You can just ask for a volunteer, or you can decide that someone on the commission will read it at the beginning of each meeting. It's really up to you.
Well, my idea was that each of us would read it in subsequent meetings, starting with the chronologically youngest.
I read it last time, and I'm definitely not the chronologically youngest,
So
unfortunately.
if no one objects to that, I guess we can do it that way.
Sure.
Okay.
Shall I get started?
It's
All
a
right.
bold assumption.
All right. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lijon. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, especially the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you. And approval of minutes.
I'll move approval.
And do we need a second?
Yes.
I second the motion.
All right.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Do we need a roll call vote?
I'm sorry?
Do we need a roll call vote?
Yes, I mean, you kind of sort of informally just did one, but why don't we do it just to be thorough?
Okay.
A roll call vote is required since Member Down is participating virtually.
Okay. Commissioner Dupuy,
Aye.
Commissioner Locke,
Aye.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Downs,
Aye.
and I.
All right, the motion prevails.
Now we go to public comment.
Correct. And the committee room is empty, so that's an easy one. Let's move on to the remote public, and we have two hands up. The first one on my list is Ms. Margie Marks, and I will bring her forward now. Ms. Marks, you're live.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I have not attended any of your meetings, so if the subject that I'm going to talk about has been covered, I apologize for that. I think some of it, though, bears repeating if people haven't heard about this. An incident involving the police happened in our city last year. An 11-year-old African-American child was chased through the streets, fearful for her life. According to the mother of the child, the city considers the case closed. The family has contacted an attorney. Some of us in the community saw this as a real not in my town moment. What the family wanted and actually would still want is some sort of restorative justice. And so I would really like this commission to look at what that could look like for a family they're not looking at money, they're not whatever, but I think that lots of times there's stuff that goes on in the city that festers and grows and seemingly never gets resolved. But if we could come up with some kind of restorative justice system, I think that would be one way for the community to feel like we are dealing with these issues. At the city council meeting this week, a woman got up and announced that there was an incident with the Albany police, and the policeman allowed an individual to leave who was driving without a driver's license to leave the scene. Now, I don't know if that's true or not true. I mean, it was reported out in public comment. But as a citizen, that kind of comment concerns me. I know that the police in the city is not going to talk about individual police people and their individual actions for personnel reasons. But like I said, these stories get out there and they get bigger and they fester. And so I think it would be good if you could come up with some way to respond to those kinds of issues. I don't expect you to respond to every little public comment, except for mine, of course. Anyway, I just, one last thing. I understand that there is a complaint form or a grievance form for people with the police. And I would like you to kind of publicize that a little more in the city, that people know that there's a form out there that they could fill out. I think it would make people feel better because now they feel like their complaints are just going up in smoke, basically. Anyway, thank you for your time. I really wanted this commission to get formed. So I'm so happy to see that you're here and I support your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have one more comment from the remote public. It's Mr. Jeremiah Garrett Pinguello. Jeremiah, you're live.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Y'all start out with, I understand the police has core values. It's kind of their slogan or something. Just wondering if you guys could eventually discuss with the police department, what their core values are and what it really means to them, if they really uphold or if they're just words, integrity, all these things, or maybe they can come up with a different, maybe this commission can come up with a different set of core values, such as, restorative justice or community or, things that kind of really mean something. Also, it would be nice if the police had their police activity leagues back up and running. I remember they had the police activity leagues going on. I think they had a basketball team or possibly something with the wrestling team. But I think it would be good for that program to continue and get back on track. I think it's on pause right now. But yeah, just wanting to touch bases with the Police Activity League. And along with that, it would be nice to see more bike patrol, bicycle patrol. I haven't seen an Albany police officer riding a bicycle, up or down Solano, other than Solano Stroll. The only time I see an Albany police officer riding a bicycle is on Solano Stroll. I think it would be great if they rode up and down Solano. It would be a good opportunity for people to actually see police officers, maybe stop to talk with them if they have a chance. So it's summertime, so I was just suggesting more bike police patrol. Also, I wanted to talk about, there should be a way, I think possibly Margie was talking about some sort of form for police misconduct complaints. So I think that's really important. Discussing a topic, maybe a future agenda item about, what to do about police misconduct complaints, something like that. So yeah, and also when school starts up, I know we have a little time, but it would be nice to see more police patrol around the schools during school hours. I know last year, a lot of complaints about speeding and all this sort of stuff, and the police department really didn't respond enough. And so it would just be really nice if in the future, the police could keep a better eye on traffic around schools. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have one more member of the public remotely who would like to make a comment. I believe it's Sinye Matson. You are live.
Thank you. I just wonder, is there any way to enlarge the section on the screen that's showing all of you? I can see Member Downs quite well, but he's the same size as all of you put together. So is there any way so that I can see who's speaking when on the commission now at this meeting?
Yes, I can help with that. That's more of a Zoom function situation, and you are able to, if you hover your mouse over, or your cursor over.
Well, I'm on an iPad, so I don't have a mouse.
There should be a way to enlarge or maximize the council chamber window. I haven't done it on an iPad, so I'm not sure about that. But generally, that is a function on Zoom. Otherwise, I'm not sure what else I can tell you about that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't it because Commissioner Downs is in his own Zoom window and we're all together?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, generally, the members will be in person and it'll all be the same. But when we need to do these remote appearances, it's not going to look exactly the same. But there should be a way to maximize the screen that has the council chambers. All right, thank you for your comment. I believe that is all we have from the public. So, Chair Down, or excuse me, Chair Johns.
And now announcements.
Yes, I have a couple. These are follow-ups from the first meeting. The city attorney, who was here last week to give a presentation, wanted to follow up on one item that came up. And she asked that I provide the commission with an answer to a question that was asked at the last meeting regarding the Brown Act and social media. A commissioner asked whether she could deny friend requests from members of the public on her personal Facebook page that she also intends to use to post about city business. Presuming privacy settings are set to public and you do not need to approve friend requests from members of the public for them to view and comment on posts about city business, you may deny friend requests. However, all posts related to city business must be viewable to the public with their ability to comment. Because the official's denial of friend requests does not amount to blocking those individuals because they still have the ability to view and comment on her posts about city business, she is not preventing those individuals from participating in a limited public forum. And therefore, she may continue to deny friend requests on that Facebook page. And just another housekeeping note about, for this commission that receiving complaints, just to let you know, as risk manager for the city, I do handle claims. So those complaints about the police department would route through me. And between the time where it's brought to my attention and the following meeting, I would do what I can to follow up and get more information about that complaint and bring the information I can before the commission. So that will be the process for that. Those are all the announcements I have. If any members have announcements, now would be the time.
I have one. You ready? Okay. At the last meeting, the chief mentioned that we were allowed or welcome to do a ride-along with an officer in the department. And so on June 30th, I did that with Officer Wade, and it was a very good experience, and I encourage all of you to do that.
Any other announcements? Yep. We can move on, Chair Johns.
And presentations.
No presentation scheduled for this meeting.
And discussion then of possible action items related to the commission work plan.
So I do have a question about, I'm new to this. It's the first time I've been on commission. And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the city council kind of gives us parameters or things that they want us to address in our commission and then bring them our recommendations. So, but then my understanding from the last meeting is that we develop our own work plan. So I'm just trying to understand how that works, how protracted that process is, because obviously I want to get stuff done. So what does that look like, and what does that entail in terms of a work plan?
Well, my understanding is that we have three meetings max to get the work plan, to get a work plan done. How we do that, I think, is contingent upon our own kind of desires, our own sense of priorities, and hashing that out. But I think, from my perspective, what we want to do is make sure that we state to the council that we have some priorities, that we're going to follow those priorities, that we're going to address those things first, so that when they review our behavior, they have something to follow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess more specifically, what does it look like? Is it a document? Are there sections and subsections?
Yeah, I think.
Do we have prime directives?
I think
How do we go about
that was
creating it?
part of,
On the back page.
yeah.
Back page?
Yeah. The staff report.
There's a template as an attachment
Yeah.
on
This thing
the
right here?
agenda.
Yeah,
Okay. So it basically says, if I'm reading this right, like regular reports, recurring action items, one-time action items. It's super general. So it's up to us then to decide what those look like, what the regular reports are going to entail, what a recurring action item is, what a one-time action item.
Yeah, for example, in the last meeting, you asked for a proactive report
Yes,
from the police.
yeah.
So I am assuming we can make that a standing part of the work plan
Okay.
so that it's clear not just to the commission members, but to anybody who checks out what we're doing or who's looking for some kind of reference, some kind of written reference, that it's there.
I wonder, Chair Johns, if I could be recognized when y'all are done. I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
No, I think that that's right. I mean, probably like some others of you, I checked in with the council member who appointed me, who's just one person, but, that council member said that, it would make sense for us to both see the work plan as a way to tell the council the things that, as the chair said, that we would expect to be held accountable for, and also to ask the council's permission for things that we want to do. Because if things that are in the work plan, that the council approves, then we are entitled to do. Things that are not in the work plan that we decide later on that we'd like to do, we would need to go back and seek further council support. So my suggestion is, partly that we build off of the kinds of things Commissioner Dupuy mentioned last meeting. What are the things that, are special action items, right? We can include a broad statement about the kinds of, policies and so on from the language of the resolution. But I think it would also make sense to have subheadings there to say, and in particular, we're interested in, these 4 or 5 areas. We might include an explicit reference to something obviously not contemplated in our resolution because it didn't exist at that time, which is, to review the crisis response team. Since, to say that one thing that we could do, whether regularly or occasionally, would be to review the performance of the crisis response team. If there were things that people wanted to make sure that we aim to review over the next 15 or 16 or 18 months, policies on force, training modules, anything that, people thought were especially important. The other thing that I would like to include in the work plan or to ask the council for permission that we would explore and lay out the principles for hiring a consultant, should we need to hire one, so that if that time comes, that we've discussed, laid out those principles and taken them back to council for authorization in terms of the kinds of things that experiences we would want a consultant to have or not have. And that we would ask council in the work plan for permission to develop a plan for soliciting nominations so that we can have a broad pool of nominations, that the commission can be part of soliciting that pool, and so that we don't have to wait to be reactive after a complaint comes in, such as might cause the question of the hiring of a consultant. That hiring, I understand, will be a council, city manager ultimate decision. But it is appropriate that the work plan could ask council for permission for us to do those preliminary stages. If council says no, then we can't. But if they say yes, then we can.
So, Chairman Johns to the commission. One of the things that stuck in my mind from public comment was Ms. Marks mentioning a specific incident, and obviously I don't know the details of that. And then I can't remember who, but another public comment mentioned a portal for complaint or grievance form that I guess is available somewhere, and making that more public. I would like, if we're going to have a regular report or recurring action item, I would like the commission to review incidents like that or grievances or anything that's reported through that portal, you know, I'm a big believer in data and patterns. And so I think it's important to look at that and see, is there a recurring instance or of this or that? And, you know, I just think it's important, you know, and even with crime, you know, are there certain types of crime that are happening in certain areas? I have a friend that does her walks every, you know, 3 times a week. And she sent me 2 pictures on her walk the other morning with 2 cars up on rocks where they'd stolen their rims and tires. And like, if that's in a particular area, we should be aware. I just think patterns speak to where we should be putting our attention, whether it be what the police are doing or where crimes are happening or whatever. Data is going to inform us the best about how to proceed. And so that's why I was so insistent last time that we get some data proactively. And I don't know what's available to us, but I would, you know, that's my hope, is that we can, you know, really harvest data and dive into it and, you know, see what it tells us.
Well, that makes sense to me because there are a host of issues, I think, where we ultimately want to be held accountable and responsible to the community. But as a new commission, we're like flying blind.
Exactly.
So unless anyone here is comfortable with that, I would agree with your desire for a formal, predictable flow of information.
And also to Commissioner Down's point, I know that we spoke last time about the, what is it called, the crisis whatever.
Yes.
And I know that they were brand new at the time. I think they were 1 week in or whatever. But
Yes.
now we're about 5 weeks in. So there should be some data about what kind of calls they're going out on, what were the results of those calls, you know, some kind of measure to see, you know, is this being successful? Is it, you know, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, we should analyze the data that's available to us and, you know, use that to inform our opinions and our decisions. That's just what I'm thinking.
Chair, can
Yes, please.
I believe that the Albany Police Department has on their website a crime mapping tool, so essentially like a map that displays this sort of data. I think it would be, to your point, a really good idea to see if we could add data from the newly established crisis response team, just to see what's going on there. So yeah, I think that's something we ought to look into.
My turn. There's a section on the work plan form of regular reports, and it seems to me what would make the most sense right now is to prioritize, and I think you mentioned this last time, and I thought at the time that was a really good idea, to prioritize what reports we'd like and how often we'd like to receive them, and then to work with staff to see how readily that works, because, you know, what we might think is a great idea is not really feasible, or maybe. So we look at it like every what do we want to see every month? What would we like to see quarterly? What would we like to see every 6 months? And what would we like to see every year? And that way we have a framework to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a real practical thing to put under regular reports.
Okay.
And that's, I think, where our discussion should go right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we can say we want this, that, and whatever, but it might be pie in the sky. If it's not available data, then it's useless to ask for it. So it might behoove us to understand from the police department what data is available, you know, and what level of detail, you know, we can get and, you know, and go from there. But
Yeah.
I agree, it should be, we should decide what kind of data we want on a regular basis and at what intervals.
Well, and I would have thought that a member of the police department would have been here today just to answer those kinds of general procedural questions. So are they not required to be here?
They're not required to be here.
Okay.
They'll be here on a regular basis to give presentations, and sometimes they'll just attend and listen, but they're not required to be here. And I have no control over their schedules.
Okay. I'm just, again, I assumed because they were here last meeting that they would be here every meeting. So maybe we want to make that request. Or a formal request for a particular kind of information.
So if we're talking about the work plan, I think, I'm just reading the paragraph at the bottom of the first page of the Policing Commission. It just says our purpose. I think that would be a good leaping off point for our work plan. So the purpose says establishment of a policing commission is intended to further community participation and engagement regarding policing policy and procedure. The commission may make policy recommendations to the city council and receive all legally public complaints from the Albany Police Department to determine whether to recommend that such complaints be referred to an outside consultant for investigation consistent with California law. So based on that purpose, what actions can we, glean from that? Like, what actionable items can we take from that? That's our overall purpose, is to further community participation. What actionable things can we do to accomplish that? And that's sort of a rhetorical question. I'm putting it to the commission. I think someone in the public comment said there's a portal for, grievances or complaints or whatever. Maybe that's not well publicized. I didn't know that it existed personally. I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't know that it existed.
I didn't know that either.
So maybe that's something that we need to take under our mantle, is to make sure that people understand where they can go if they have concerns and how they can communicate that to us, I don't know.
Well, I was also thinking, or I was wondering, if we might ask for some kind of presentation on how complaints have been handled in the past, whether or not there's some changes that have been made that have improved the process or not, just how the process works. Because I know as a citizen, while I've had a tour of the department and I've gone on a ride along myself, there are things that, as a commissioner, I feel like I should know that I don't know right now. And that kind of familiarity, I think, can only be gained by some kind of dialogue or conversation or regular interaction.
So I think perhaps like the order of operations here is to triage like the information need. So we're talking about what pieces of data do we need, and then listing those out in order of priority, right? Like what's most critical? Is it like the number of service calls? Is it, as you mentioned, Member Dupuy, crime statistics? Is it the current process of filing a complaint? I think we need to get all of these out in a list and then assign them sort of a criticality, and then we can go about requesting the information in an orderly manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So should we start our list?
Yeah, is someone going to take,
Kind of talking, but
is
let's,
that me? I don't know.
it could be anybody. Okay, but let's kind of think about where we are right now, because,
Okay.
we don't want 10,000 things on our list.
Right.
But I think crime data and I don't think the complaint, I think asking questions about the complaint policy is good. I don't think it fits exactly in this box, but I think it goes in this area. Mental health services, like you said, it's new. I think getting information about that is probably important. I'd be interested in use of force, what that looks like, what the definition is, how often it occurs. One of the things probably all of us hear a lot about is traffic and speeding, that kind of thing. So, and I know the police give a report to the Transportation Commission. I don't want to overlap that, but maybe something about traffic. And I think these are they're rather high level, and if we have more questions, we can delve into them. So I think at this point, those are the ones we've said. Have I left any out?
So would it make sense to make a list of the reports or the data we're looking for in order of importance, and then present that to the police department and see what is actually available, readily available? Because we might be asking for something that is not like a simple query of their data. I don't know how easy it is for them to pull certain types of information. And I don't know that any of us on the commission do know how easy that is.
Yeah.
So
Or what data?
maybe it would make sense
responsible.
for us to make a sort of exhaustive list of, what types of information we want, and then find out how readily available it is. And, then prioritize what we can actually get.
And I think the timeline for, as I said before, is it monthly, quarterly, whatever? I think that's part of what we're asking.
Yeah.
Part of the discussion with them
Yeah.
is how does that piece work?
Well, I think, this is just my opinion, but crime statistics, I think is something that is readily available. I mean, they have the heat map already. I can't imagine that's difficult for them to pull that data. That's something we should probably have, ahead of each meeting. Like I said before, I'm interested in identifying patterns, and that could be patterns of police behavior or patterns of crime or whatever. Patterns where, I think that patterns inform us a lot of, trends, cultural, things, problems. If we see that you spoke about, use of force. If we saw that there was use of force, and obviously I'm just hypothetically throwing this against the wall, but if we got, information about that and we found out that it happens during this particular shift or something, primarily, that would dictate a pattern that needs maybe to be dug into a little bit more. So, anyway, like I said, I don't know what is readily available. So I think it's important to figure that out. And then also, to your point, prioritize, because we don't want to be buried in data. That's not going to help us. We should have succinct priorities and then, get the information that we need to address those priorities that we have identified.
So are there any other reports that we can think of right now to add to this list?
As for a type of data, I think it would be what kind of calls the police get, perhaps those related to traffic stops or those related to mental health. I think that's important to note down as well.
And I know we didn't all go on our orientation together, but I do remember that when I went on my orientation and the chief was taking us around, and I asked, how the police spend their time. He was explaining that there's essentially 2 shifts a day and 2 different crews, so 4 different shifts. And he was saying that I can't remember the exact percentages, but it was something like 30% of the time they're going out on 911 calls, I'm just throwing numbers out there because I honestly don't remember. Another 30% of the time they're going out on non-emergency calls to the police station. And I asked him, what are you guys spending your other 30% of the, or 40% of the time on? And he said on patrol. And my question was, okay, so are you guys looking at the crime data? Like, oh, crimes are happening along the BART tracks, auto thefts or break-ins. Are your patrols following the crime data? And like, my feeling was that he was like, no, not really. Like, we're just patrolling. So I would be interested to see, if, again, back to the patterns. Sorry to be harping on it, but like, to me, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm not a police officer, whatever, but like, if you're just out on a patrol, you would want to know if there is a tendency for certain crimes to happen in certain areas, and then base your patrols routes around what's actually happening in real time, not just wandering the streets aimlessly.
Well, let's hope that's not happening.
Yeah, but
Chair Downs.
Commissioner Locke.
I think another piece of useful data that we might want to have is the number and type of service calls. So in other words, everything from somebody who's locked out of their car to, a missing pet. I think these are also instances of interaction between law enforcement and the public. Having that just in terms of, frequency, type, location, that might paint a more three-dimensional picture of how the public is interacting with the police and public safety here in Albany. So I would just add that to the list if we're trying to be exhaustive, or at least trying to put items on that list.
and again, going back to the stated purpose is to further community participation and engagement regarding policing policy. So what can we do, either as a commission or ask the police department to do, to further their participation? I don't know that this is true of Albany, but I do know that it's true sort of universally, that a lot of people don't engage with the police. They don't call them when maybe they need to because of, fear or, mistrust or whatever. So how can we address that issue? How can we make the community feel better about their police department and vice versa, so that people are not afraid to engage, with the police? I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we're tasked to do that, is to increase community participation. So how can we make that easier or more comfortable?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Maybe one of, I think there's two ways to look at that, and I think it's a good idea. One thing is, like, on a one-time action item, is having a discussion about exactly that, the social interaction of the police and the community, whether it's National Night Out, whether it's Neighborhood Watch, or, there's a whole host of things. And I think we saw last time a long list of activities that they do. The other thing is we could request it, probably not every month, but as one of the regular reports, what kind of activities did they participate in? Would they like to participate in? How can we help them? That kind of piece. And maybe that's in every 6 months.
I, for one, was thinking about that issue because last time we had a couple of calls, and when I left here, I thought we didn't really handle those calls well because they weren't complaints per se, but they were voicing something that I thought we should at least say, okay, we hear that. We're going to look at that and see if there's something more that we can do in the future. So I feel like part of our charge, per se, isn't to just deal with formal complaints, but it's to work as another kind of well-known, well-utilized entry point for whatever dialogue can occur, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like a liaison between the community and the police department.
Well, that is one of the things in the resolution. But I think we need to be very careful when, should a member of the public come with a complaint or a comment or something, we really can't react immediately to it. But on the other hand, I would never want to say, there's a form online, go fill it out. That is not what I'm saying. But I think that's where, Luke, where your role comes in as the risk management person, that we can direct them. Be sure you get the contact information, someone will get back to you, and we'll try to resolve this. So that they feel heard, there's a person that's readily going to respond, and we're not in a back and forth with, well, what happened? How did that happen? Oh, that's not right either. So I think that, Luke, that's a good answer to that. We're giving people an opportunity with a person to actually talk to. Don't you love it that I'm giving you work?
We can do something like that, yes.
Because I agree, we can't just sit here and go, but there has to be a mechanism in place.
And I don't know if that's a practice, a question of practice or procedure or whatever, but something that can be articulated and replicated and recognized by everyone who's participating in this process, right?
Right, I don't think it's part of our work plan, but I do think it's a procedure of this committee. Kind of like, someone comes to council and has a concern about a tree or whatever, it goes to the right department and gets taken care of, hopefully.
So kind of what I'm hearing is not only so that those concerns of those individuals feel heard, but that they actually are, and what I hear you saying is essentially getting that to the proper point of contact, those referrals, so that, that there can be some sort of resolution or at least information exchange. I do think that perhaps is independent or a different topic than the development of the work plan. I think what we were talking about previously was developing an exhaustive or maybe at least some sort of a comprehensive list of data that we would desire from the police department, and then prioritizing those in terms of which do we think are the most important, and then establishing a cadence of how often we want to be updated or briefed on that. So I just wanted to get us to that.
Well, I have a question as it relates to the work plan, or as it relates to our commission in general. How often are we reporting to the city council? how often are we called to like give recommendations? Is it as needed, or is there a regular cadence to this that we're going to the, going to a city council meeting and presenting our findings, our reports?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
I would say as needed.
As needed? Okay.
If we have something that we want them to know about, then we take it to them. At the end of the cycle, the 2-year cycle, we do a report.
Okay. All right.
So should we return to the list and make sure that we get that squared away first?
Okay, so what I have on my list from what we talked about is, in terms of data, was just like raw crime data. So just also the critical response team, like data regarding their number of calls, place of calls, issues, whatever. And then I don't even know if this is a piece of data we can glean, but I would love to see it. A report on use of force, and then also something with regards to traffic, so traffic-related crimes. And I have to say, since that red light is blinking on Masonic and Marin, I have seen so many illegal U-turns out there. I know they're waiting on a part, I've heard, but.
I like that list, Commissioner Dupuy, and the one thing I might add to is to ask council if we should issue regular, whatever is the right amount, every 6 months or a year or 3 months, reviews of how the crisis response team is. Presumably council will have to reckon with renewing it and facing budgetary decisions. And so us being able to give them, not only say we're reviewing the data, but we're issuing updates to council, I think would be a useful part of our function.
I propose that the critical response team data, quarterly, does that seem fair to you guys? I think monthly might be a little much and doesn't really, but quarterly seems like a good amount of data to review.
I would have to disagree a little bit with Member Downs. I think it's important that council get that information. I think it should come directly from the police department and not from us. But that's just my thought.
I want to clarify what I think I heard Member Downs say. Was that so much the data itself or our reaction as a commission to that data? I heard the latter, but that could be my misinterpretation of what the suggestion was.
That's what I meant to say, Commissioner Locke, the latter. That we would report what our judgment is of the effectiveness and the utility of the team, so that when council faces its decisions later on, it is not having to start afresh.
And so if that's the case, and I seem to be hearing you correctly, that information would necessarily come from this commission versus from the police department, because it's essentially our reaction to the information, right, or our interpretation of it.
I mean, we're the policing commission, right? So I think it's important that we get the data, and then as a commission sort of scrub the data, I mean, you can present the city council with the raw data, but if they haven't dug into it the way that we do, and they have a million other things on their table, our job is to give them our recommendation based on what information we're privy to. So I think it's important that we get the information. We sort of look at it, come to a conclusion based on that, and then present our findings to the council. I mean, I kind of feel like that's what we're here to do, right? Is to make recommendations to the council so they don't have to do all of this work that we're doing. Otherwise, it's a little redundant, to my mind.
Is that a complete list? Or as complete as we're going to get for the moment?
I think that, honestly, I could sit here and give you like lists all day of things I'd like to know and get into the weeds, but just realistically, I think we should concentrate on things that have the most impact. Start with that. If we get through that and we find we have the bandwidth or, you know, whatever to tackle more or to get further into it, then, you know, we can do that later. But I think it's a good leaping off point personally, but.
And we got the issue of the complaint policy, meaning some kind of report or understanding of how complaints have been handled in the past. That's on our list now. Luke? Is
What was the
that
question to me?
there was a reference to how complaints have been handled in the past. Is that on our list of things that we want to know moving forward?
Are you asking if it should be a member of a piece of your work plan or just or something else? I'm not sure.
I would think moving forward, we would want some kind of report as quickly as it could be made, just on how complaints have been handled in the past, how they're, you know, what the procedure is, what sort of shortcomings the chief or whomever feels have or haven't been addressed. But just how do people complain and get heard now?
Okay, I think that can be a future agenda item, and there's two options probably. One would be a staff report that I would work with the police department to put together, or if, you know, this is all pending their, you know, Chief Geisberger or one of his top lieutenants' availability, but we could get someone in for a live presentation at a future meeting. And just since we're on that topic, as I think we all know, next month, August, there's no policing commission meeting or any other commission meeting for that matter. So it would be, the soonest it would be is September, but I will have to look into the department's availability for a live presentation, and the other option would be a staff report of some kind.
Could I suggest that, and I know now I'm starting to jump around a little bit, but we put that item under one-time action items on our work plan?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. But as far as that's concerned too, grievances and complaints, and I know there's some portal or some way to report that, the community can report that. I'm guessing, I don't know because I don't have access to that information, that there's not a ton of them that come through. I do feel like if a formal complaint is made through that avenue, that's something that the commission should review. Like, I feel like I would want to hear that if there was a particular complaint or grievance made, you know, formalized through this portal. I feel like that's something that we should, at least as a commission, maybe it's not an action item on our work plan, but that we should at least get those, you know, so that we can.
Part of the resolution actually says that. And I think this could go in under recurring action items, receive and provide recommendations, including no action on complaints. I think that is in the resolution. I think that's part of our purview, but it would go under the recurring action items.
Okay. So is that mechanism set up for us to receive those, or is that something we have to request? I don't know.
If it's part of your work plan as a recurring item, then that you wouldn't have to make a request it repeatedly. It would just be brought to you in staff reports and such.
Okay. Well, I would very much like that to be a recurring action item, that we review any formalized complaints that come through as a commission.
That makes sense to me, but I'm also wondering if there are portions of what you're saying where one of us or more than one of us could take the responsibility of researching. For example, checking out the complaint form, doing some legwork on, okay, here's how it looks to be set up now, and then coming back and reporting that to
Well,
the
my
rest
thought,
of
and
the-
again, I don't know how it's set up now, but my understanding, based on our conversation this evening, is that there is some portal out there, maybe on the Albany website or whatever, where you can, it's like an online form. You fill in your name, your whatever information, and then there's probably a comment section where you type in your comments. Kind of like a Yelp review or something, I don't know. But I imagine that information goes somewhere, and then it would just come out kind of like, emails or, I don't know that it would. I think that every commissioner should have access to read them and come to their own conclusions. If we decide to pursue the complaint further, like investigate, then that would be something we should probably decide as a commission. I don't think that one of us should decide that for the commission. I mean, that's my feeling.
I can't imagine it's legal for us to see the complaints. I think I just don't think we can do that.
Really?
I think there is a process. I'm looking it up, but we already put on, one of the things we want a briefing on is the complaint policy going back and looking forward. So I think you're right. We can look at this, but we kind of already have it in our work plan. So let's follow the
Okay.
process here a little bit.
Now, are we not?
I wonder if I'm hearing two, related but different strands about the complaints. One of which is the desire to have a recurring item of updates on complaints in whatever format we are allowed to be able to have that. And the other is a discussion of the process of making the complaint process visible to the public. And that's a different issue, but it also would be, I think, a reasonable thing for us to talk about, for each of us to go. It's a PDF, right now, and also a description of other ways that complaints can be filed. And for each of us to look at that, and also to, we can weigh in on whether we think it's easy to find this or hard to find this, whether we think the format of it works or doesn't work. We could engage with the police department, put on our work plan that will engage with the police department about how to improve the process so that that complaint process is visible to the public.
And again, I have never seen this thing. I didn't even know it existed. But would it be possible, and I'm just throwing this out there, if that were in fact an online form where you fill out your name, your contact information, you fill out your complaint, if there were a checkbox that said, I allow my complaint to be reviewed by the policing commission, and they could either check it or not check it, is that something that's possible? Because it could be a very general complaint, like the police never come down my street and I wish they did. Or it could be a very personal complaint about a specific instance that they're complaining about. And of course, me personally, if I were using that portal, it was something like, oh, I never see the police driving down my street and we've had, multiple break-ins, that's my concern. I wouldn't care if the policing commission reviewed that, because that's just general. If it were something very personal to me, something that happened within my family or at my house, maybe I'd be a little bit more private about that information. But I think that giving somebody an opportunity to say, yes, I would like this reviewed by the commission, or no, I would not, I would like it to stay within the PD, I mean, I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Well, it seems to me like the more we talk, the more questions we have, which
Isn't that always the way?
is kind of scary. The questions, they all sound valid to me, but I'm not sure how to contain this so that we can move forward.
Can we just leave it on our work plan as we have it under one-time action items as, I don't want to use the word study session because that gets weird, but just an agenda item at some point. But,
Yeah.
you know, what I think we really want to do tonight is get our work plan, get our framework, and get it to council so we can start doing these things. Because I'm not sure that we can request presentations on things even until the council's approved the work plan. So we got to get that done and get permission and then get going.
I agree with you. Council would agreed. But also, we can put this work plan together, and yet we don't 100% know what data is actually available. Like, this is, we wrote down what we want, but we don't know for sure because there's no representative of the police department here tonight to tell us whether it's something we can actually have or not. So can we present a work plan to the council that might not be 100% possible or feasible? Like, I don't know. Again, I've never done this before, so I defer.
I mean, would it be possible to have this interest in data collection to be like a either one-time action item or recurring action item, and then once we present, or like if that item were to be approved by city council, then request some kind of presentation from the department or from the staff report on like what kind of data is currently being like recorded and what kind of data is being posted and made available to the public. Sort of like your request for a presentation, would that, timeline be possible or structuring in the work plan? I don't know.
So I can offer a suggestion here. There's going to be some lag between tonight's meeting and when the work plan gets approved, just because there's no council meeting next month. And we don't know for sure that they'll have room on their agenda in September to get to it. Hopefully they will, but I can't verify that. So in the meantime, what I think we can do is you guys can present a list of the types of data you're thinking about requesting to me, and I can run it by the department and get an idea of what's feasible and what's not.
I think that's helpful.
Okay.
So you have what we've said so far?
I've been taking notes, so yes.
You are the guy.
So do you need us to send you like a formalized request, or you got it?
Tell you what, I will put my list into something legible and converse with Chair Johns about it.
Okay.
Ensure that everything that you guys want is covered
Okay,
before I go to the department and ask
thank you.
what we can and can't get.
Another way that we, I think that would be great, thank you. Another way that we could contemplate including all the things we want in our work plan, but not accidentally narrowing our range in a way that we regret, would be to structure it so that we include the general statement from the resolution, which is quite broad, of review policies, procedures, et cetera, and then say, we are especially interested in emphasizing the following, and that then would give us the leave if there was something that we didn't mention in the work plan, but that would be covered specifically, but that would be covered by the general language in the resolution, that we wouldn't need to then go back to ask for the work plan to be amended, because I think we do want to give enough specificity that council has an idea that we're, have a plan, But we also don't want to get ourselves in a box where we're so specific that we are not able to respond to things that we learn without having to every time go back to council and ask for an amendment to the work plan.
So it sounds like you're going to be charged with putting that into English? Is that what we're?
Well, I'm not going to offer my own judgment or opinion about what you guys want to prioritize. I just have a list of things I've heard you guys say so far.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So that's where like I can interact with Chair Johns and get an idea of.
Okay.
But before we move on to the next future agenda items, can you just, for my clarification, tell me what you have on your list? If it's not just,
So you're looking at your first, I mean, you're going to think more about whether you want data monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, types of calls the department receives, any data on use of force when they respond to calls, just the raw crime data. I don't know if there's actual data that will show patterns, but you might have to get the data to
Right,
find the patterns.
exactly.
But, crisis response team data, there might not be a lot of that yet, but there's probably a little bit. Traffic-related crime data, and I'm not sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but did you want some data regarding complaints that have been received through the portal
Yeah.
to date?
yes,
Okay.
I would personally.
So I'll keep that
How
in
about the rest of you?
But I thought
What
that.
did I not mention that you guys want to make sure is included?
No, that seemed complete to me, but.
One thing I think, perhaps in your discussion, it might be helpful to ask about timing, rather than our trying to say, well, we want this every month, and so it kind of skips a step if you come back with that information. And to go back to complaints, I think there should be a whole conversation around it. I'm not sure that just getting data points is going to be very useful to us. I think it makes more sense to look at it, in the past, going forward, and how to improve it as a whole action item, rather than just a data point.
So we're talking about formalizing the whole discussion about complaint policy.
Understanding what it is, how it's shared with the public, and how the forms are shared with the public, not the complaints, and what might be a better way to do that.
No, that idea makes perfect sense to me, but has it been articulated in a way that will survive moving forward?
I'm not really in a position to judge that, but I think if you just put in clear language in your work plan, it'll probably
Okay,
be sufficient.
okay.
And it could go as under the one-time action items. Obviously, it could come back a second time, but we'll assume.
So just for my clarification, what would be the difference between a regular report and a recurring action item? So a recurring report would be something reported to us or something we're reporting out.
Regular reports are coming to us.
Okay. And then, so then a recurring action item is something we are doing.
Right. We're taking the action.
All right, just wanted to be clear. I know it seems like a stupid question, but sometimes things sound very redundant.
I also have a question. Is there a difference between the complaints coming through the portal and those that are legally public? Like, what are legally public complaints? Because in the resolution that created this body, it says that the commission shall receive all legally public complaints from the police department in a timely manner So what are those legally public complaints?
That's a solid question.
That is something I'll have to get back to you on. I don't know exactly what the parameters are there. But I will check.
Thank you.
And I wrote down, you wondered what kind of calls were being made to the department.
Yeah, I think it would be good to see, just like categorized by type, like what kind of calls are coming in, like if they're about mental health or traffic or theft or, yeah, I think that kind of breakdown would be good to see.
And did we want, you also formalized the request about what Margie mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah, just because that's the first like actual incident that I've heard reported, and that's kind of thing that I think as a policing commission we should hear and, you know, consider. You know, I feel like that is our job as a policing commission, is to hear not only general information from the public, but specific information about incidents that occurred, and see if there's something that we ought to be doing about it or ought to be recommending. I mean,
I agree. I just wanted to make sure we
yeah.
didn't
So,
drop that.
and she didn't give too much like specifics, you know, about time, place, date, whatever happened. It was sort of general. But when I was talking about complaints that come through the police department or whatever, or through the portal, and I guess that's another question. I imagine that not everybody, because I never knew that such a thing existed, I imagine the community at large doesn't know that necessarily. So there may be complaints that are coming through other channels, like maybe a phone call to the police department or a letter written directly to the police department. How do we get that data as well? Like, how do we sort of funnel all of the complaint data to the commission? I don't know. I don't know, like, who at the police department would be, you know, opening those letters or fielding those calls, or if they take notes on the call, where it goes from there, what the process is. I know that we're going down a rabbit hole and we can't get all into that, especially because we don't have anyone here tonight that can answer those questions. But for future, it would be important to know that, I think.
Anyone have anything else to add?
So can you summarize what we have for recurring action items?
My notes are.
Just to clarify, I'm not in charge of drafting the
Yeah,
plan.
yeah, I know.
I kept the list of kinds of data you want, but I'm not in charge.
I know. I'm looking at my notes, but they're kind of, I wrote them here and there and on several different pages. I should probably get better at taking notes. But one of the recurring action items I wrote down was a review of the grievances. So a review of the complaints and or grievances through whichever channel they come through would be a recurring action item. I'm trying to think of what else we said.
I think the language in the resolution is receive and provide recommendations. So we may want to just sort of suck it right out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically saying what you said.
Yeah.
And I would add including no action, because sometimes there is no action to be taken.
Right.
I think it's important to say that, okay?
A recurring action item, I think. I mean, because the regular reports are the things we delineated before. Those are the reports that will be coming to us. So our recurring action item would be to analyze and discuss as a commission, you know, the what we've discovered from those reports, you know, and what concerns might, you know, jump off the page at one or more of us or all of us, you know. So, I mean, collecting data is one thing, but analyzing data is an action item. So, I don't know. I don't know how you word that, but that's.
And another thing that's in the resolution is to convey questions from the public to the department's representative. So if someone comes and has a question, we're sort of the vehicle to get that question answered for them. Doesn't mean that we answer it, but we get it to someone who can. And we also report to the city council on any items that they should be aware of.
Yeah.
And that kind of takes, I think, Chair Downs, I think you mentioned that before, that we don't necessarily wait till the very end. If there's something that comes up, we alerts or we report to the city council.
Right. So maybe that's a recurring action item that maybe at the conclusion of, any agendized part of our meeting, we decide if there's something that needs to be brought forth. As a commission, we decide, is this something that could wait or something that needs to go now?
In the city council's resolution, it mentions that us as a commission shall receive briefings or reports, I guess, on the police department's training, like basically their policies on training, recruitment, budget, et cetera. Is that something that should go in the work plan, or is that just in the resolution, and should we be deciding like our timeline for that in terms of like quarterly, yearly?
I think it goes as one-time action items.
Okay.
Why?
Well, because I think if we're going to receive a training on recruitment or briefing on training and recruitment, we don't need that every month. But to have a presentation on that would be important.
Okay, I gotcha.
The same with policies, or if there's something that they want to change, or there's something maybe that we could support them on, come to us as a one-time action item and say,
I gotcha.
I think, one thing I think is going to be important in this commission is we are going to be the vehicle for the public to learn about policies and procedures and trainings that the police department does. So this is the way that information will get out to the public is through our meetings.
All right.
I have one more one-time action item, which is develop recommendations for hiring a consultant, lay out the principles for hiring a consultant, and a plan for soliciting nominations, so that we are helping get the count and to report those to council.
Yeah.
I have to disagree with that. When council did not put that in the resolution very, very specifically, so it doesn't seem like it's something that council wants this commission to do. It's not normally the role of an advisory body to be drafting, and basically we'd be drafting an RFP, request for proposal. I just don't think that's in our purview and we haven't been given that direction. So I wouldn't be in favor of adding it.
I think that I agree with you about the way the resolution is stated. Obviously, if this council strikes it from the work plan, then we can't do it. So, and I think, we agree on that. I think if this council does approve it, then, we should. So I'm not sure that I would understand not asking for input. The reason asking for input is in prior nominations processes for outside consultants, there have been times when people on advisory commissions with extensive networks and knowledge of the area suggested people to staff who staff never contacted. And I think that, while the ultimate decision needs to be made not by the commission, I think it would be really disappointing if we had a scenario where someone was selected as a consultant who had, a record that we didn't approve of, or a pattern of work that suggested biases we were concerned about, or where people on the commission, not me, but who are subject area experts, knew of people who might be available and qualified who never got contacted. And so that's my concern. Having been through the process before, my concern is that that I don't want to repeat that process again, and I would like to help council get on record about some of the things that they would like to see in a consultant in terms of what their backgrounds are, what kind of work they've done in the past, and what kind of biases we want to be on the alert for.
Well, it might be interesting to look back at what's been done in the past and how often a consultant has needed to be used, and get a little more background to this before we jump into it.
I think adding that to the work plan is part of our process. I think that makes perfect sense, that we, in coming up with our sense of principles and plan for soliciting nominations, we review the way that it's been done in the past. I absolutely agree with that.
Aren't we talking about something that hasn't been done in the past? Or
Do we even know that? I mean, I don't know. We don't know if there have been times in the past where they've used outside consultants. So that might be an interesting question to ask, and maybe that comes under policies. What triggers an outside consultant?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Maybe, we fold that into the policy discussion.
So I apologize to you, Commissioner Downs. One of my children is blowing my phone up for reasons unknown to me. But so anyway, I was like in and out of listening to you. But what I gleaned was your thought is that we should maybe pre-vet consultants in the instance that we may need them, or just understand that process, and I'm sorry if I'm making you repeat yourself.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry that I'm not there, and that adds to the communication challenge. My suggestion is that we lay out some principles that we would suggest that we would discuss, and then lay out some principles that we would suggest to council. These might be about the kinds of experiences we would want a consultant to have, or conversely, types of experiences that we would not want a consultant to have, so that we can ask council if they endorse those, so that if there is a consultant hired, that those principles are laid out on the table. And similarly, I think that it would, I would like for us to talk about how nominations will be solicited, so that again, if that time comes when a consultant is to be hired to investigate a case, that we've already been able to present to council our ideas and gotten council's response about how we should solicit nominations. So I'm not so much thinking about us pre-vetting people as much as laying out principles. I do recognize it's confusing, because here we've got a consultant for a specific type of investigation. I have no idea if that's ever happened before. But the city has hired consultants before, and even at times when it has hired a consultant for a commission that I was a part of, the staff did not, hire someone who had background in the area that was at the center of the charge. And the staff, other people on the commission, not myself, were subject area experts who had collected names of people who the staff could contact, and none of those people, to my knowledge, were ever contacted. So I am concerned that if there were an incident that seemed to require a consultant, that if we're not laying out what we think the principles are and getting council to think about what the principles are, we could end up with a consultant with a set of experiences that we might think are even disqualifying, and that we would be helpless to intervene in. And having seen the city spend a lot of money on a consultant who did not know the area that this person was asked to consult on, I'm concerned about what we can do to help to make sure that process is effective.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So I do agree with what you're saying. I think that it would behoove us, we have a section in our agenda that's for presentations. And I think Commissioner McQuaid mentioned that maybe during that, we could have a presentation on how that process has typically gone, what the steps are when it's required. But I also think it might be putting the cart before the horse to decide what our principles are if we don't know what the investigation is going to be about. It might, because that might change our opinion on what qualities we're looking for, depending on what the issue actually is. But I think it would be important to know what that process looks like. If, should we be faced with it? Here's hoping we aren't, but, we may well be. So.
All right.
So just real quick to respond to what I thought I heard Member Downs say is that the current procedure is the ultimate determination and hiring decision is one that rests with council. But that the recommendation is for this commission to put in its work plan the goal of determining some desired qualifications, experiences, skills, et cetera, as a recommendation, again, not with any determinative power in that ultimate hiring decision. That's what I got from what I heard. And so in response to the concern, Member Dupuy, that you're articulating, that with each situation that arises, or potential situation, that those qualifications may change based on specific expertise, I think nonetheless that it is conceivable that there's maybe some baseline experiences, skills, qualifications that would apply to the type of complaints or the type of situation in which a consultant would be used, right? Looking at the specific purview of this commission dealing with policing. So I think that's what I got out of Member Downs' comments.
Do we feel better now?
I don't disagree.
Okay.
There's nothing to say.
Member Downs, you're good?
Are we deciding today about a work plan, or are we putting things down in the idea that we'll vote on it in our next meeting?
Yeah, I thought we were just getting everything down.
So there's a few options there. First, and this is would obviously be quite a challenge, but you could draft something during this meeting, which there's only 26 minutes left unless we just extend it. Or, and then if you feel like you have a finalized work plan, you would then on motion vote for it to approve it, and then it would get sent to council at their first opportunity to review it. The other two options are that you could form a subcommittee of less than half of you to draft the formal version of the work plan, and then at your next meeting, you would vote on it as a commission. And the third option is slightly different than that. It would be Chair Johns working with me to finalize a work plan, which would then get voted on at the next meeting. So those are the options that make the most sense and that will result in a finalized work plan soonest and hopefully smoothest. So think it over. Someone has to move to adopt one of those choices.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Well, I think before we can make a motion on a subcommittee, we have to have people that are willing to do it. And that would be how many of us? 3, 2, 3?
3 or less.
Are there three of us that would like to be part of a subcommittee?
I would be willing to.
Peggy? Okay.
And I would, for sure.
Okay, so I'm being helpfully reminded that before a motion actually gets made, we have to open up for public comments.
Okay.
So we're at about the point where we think we're going to make a motion on this?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's go to public comments. There's still no one in the room, so let's go straight online. We have two hands up. The first one on my list this time is Signe Matson. You are live.
Thank you. I noticed that there's been no mention in your requests for reports or data about racial or ethnic or cultural identity of people involved. So I'm asking, is that a concern of this commission? Is that information that you think is necessary to look for patterns?
Can we speak to that? Or I was hopeful, and maybe I didn't specify this, that would be part of the raw crime data. The demographics would be included. Is that something that we need to ask for separately?
Honestly, don't know. I think it makes sense that I can, when I present the list to the department, I can mention that that data is part of what you want, like basically add it to the list,
Yeah.
just to make sure.
So certainly, yes, that's something that I was hoping to look at as well, but I apologize I didn't specify that.
Yeah, I assumed it was going to be a part of it.
Ms. Matson, anything else you wanted to add? It looks like no. All right, moving on. Mr. Garrett Pinguello also has his hand up, and you are live.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I just don't want this commission to feel pressured by city staff that there's only three options, that basically you have to complete your work plan for the next year before next meeting. It's a lot of pressure. I feel like we're just in the brainstorming phase, and even the chair spoke that, possibly thought that we're just trying to figure this out and we'd have another meeting to do all this stuff. So there's a fourth option. You're just brainstorming now, and your next meeting you can discuss all this again and then finalize what you want to do for your work plan to make the subcommittee and all that. So don't feel pressured by city staff. You are the commissioners. Regarding the work plan, I think it's really important to address fentanyl. The city of Albany is involved in a case, class action lawsuit, and the city of Albany is going to be, or the county is supposed to be coming up with a bunch of money to distribute for the cities or the county regarding fentanyl. And so it'd be nice for the work plan to discuss, what's the city of Albany going to be doing regarding fentanyl in our community? Is there going to be public training for parents or people about fentanyl? Is there going to be, is this commission going to have awareness classes? Just things regarding fentanyl. I think that's really important that we don't forget about that on the work plan. Also, a recurring action item or the work plan could be police purchases, right? So anytime the police wants to purchase, more military weapons like they always do at city council meeting, I think that should go through this commission first. And then this commission can recommend to city council, yeah, we should buy military weapons, or no, we shouldn't buy military weapons. I think police purchases regarding weapons, police cars, there should be some sort of review policy created with that, some sort of checks and balances, right? Also, regarding the data, I think it'd be important to get possibly if there's, a murder, like a death, or maybe DUIs or assaults. And regarding the traffic, I think the Traffic Commission gets the traffic collision data, but we should get the data of car thefts, vandalism, broken windows, stolen catalytic converters, and things like that. Also, just want to let you know that the police is watching this meeting just for safety reasons. And there's a button underneath the chair's desk to press in case of an emergency. Last thing I want to mention is critical response vehicle. I saw it today. I think it's a gray or brown vehicle, but I hope someone takes a ride along with the critical response team. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Those are all the public comments I see now. If the commission would like to address anything that was said in the public comments, you may, or we can move on to the.
Oh, go ahead. You want to go?
Commissioner Dupuy?
I wanted to thank Jeremiah for his comments. Also say that I, in fact, did not think about this, but, and I don't know if this would be part of the raw crime data, but drug-related crime data would be, I think important. I don't know specifically fentanyl, if we just get all crime or drug-related data and sort of suss out if there's a pattern with, fentanyl abuse in the community. I know it's nationally, it's a problem, but I would like to see that. I don't know, again, just like the first comments are said, about, race and cultural and identity statistics. I was kind of encapsulating all of those things, including the drug crimes in that sort of the raw crime data. But if we need to break it out specifically, I would be interested in seeing that as well. And then he also made a comment about police purchases. I didn't realize, I guess I don't know, and maybe I should have done my homework. I didn't realize that the police went to the council to get approval for those types of purchases. And yeah, I would be interested to see what they're asking for in terms of resources and whether this commission believes that it's, a valid and necessary purchase. Not that we're the authority, but it would be interesting to know what they're asking for. Obviously, we don't want a militia.
There's federal law that sets up a process for purchase like that. They recently had a public meeting here on the City Hall property to discuss it with the public, and then it went to council.
Okay.
Chair.
Commissioner Lee?
All right, thank you. With regards to the data on demographics, I believe there is a law in California passed in 2015, AB 953, that requires police to record in their records perceived race and ethnicity as a reason for a traffic stop. So I believe that data should exist, but I don't know where I don't know if that's publicly available or if that's recorded for other incidences. If not, I think that's important data to have to be able to identify problems. Yeah, thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I was wrong. It's state law, not federal.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so
Yeah, no more public comments. So if you want to go back to the potential motion.
that's right. Do we have a motion? Or do we want?
Yes, I make a motion that we proceed with a subcommittee to draft our work plan so that we can vote on it at our next meeting, because my understanding is we can't really do anything until we have a work plan, right? So I'd like to get going.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Dupuy?
Are you calling for a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Yes.
Commissioner Downs,
Yes.
and I. I say aye.
You guys have it.
So, future agenda items?
Well, we need to
Hold on
set
one
the-
second. I think Peggy has the same idea I do. Who's going to be on the subcommittee?
Oh,
Well, we had Peggy, we had you.
I would be interested in being on the
There we
subcommittee.
go. 1, 2, 3.
Member McQuaid, Member Johns, and Member Lee. Is that correct?
Sounds like it.
Do we need to vote on that?
We might as well, yes. We better.
So then there be, is another motion?
Another vote, yes, on the composition of the subcommittee, I guess we can call it.
Does it need to be in the form of a motion?
I guess, yes.
Okay, I make a motion that the subcommittee for our work plan consists of Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Johns, and Commissioner McQuaid.
and is there a
Second.
second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Dupuy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Yes.
Commissioner Downs.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
So motioned and seconded.
So as a question of process, can we set it up through you, emailing you to get our contact information? I want to make sure we don't screw this up and violate the Brown Act getting out of the gate.
Well, I know who's going to be on the subcommittee, so I can I can put you guys in contact and
Perfect, thank you.
start it out that way, yeah. Okay. Before we move on to future agenda items, if that's what you were planning on doing, Chair Johns, we have another public comment.
All right.
So Mr. Garrett Pinguello has a public comment. You are live.
Yeah, just point of procedure regarding the subcommittee. On the agenda that you're going to form a subcommittee, so does something like that need to be on the agenda? You know, I know at the last RISE Commission, Jim Lindsay told everybody that they couldn't form a subcommittee regarding racial inequality for housing because it wasn't on the agenda. So I'm getting mixed, you know, information on how that's supposed to go about, because that wasn't on this agenda. I mean, I don't mind. I'm just kind of confused as a citizen when one commission states that, you know, oh, you can't form a subcommittee because it wasn't put on the agenda, and then this commission forms a subcommittee, you know, without it on the agenda.
So actually, Member McQuaid, do you have any thoughts on this?
I would say the agenda item was the work plan, and because the subcommittee is working to move the work plan forward, we are within the limitations. But I didn't go to law school.
That was my thought as well, because it is basically the outcome of something that was agendized. So I don't know. Wasn't privy to the other meeting and what their conversation was, so I don't know how it differs or is similar. But
Can I add that while I appreciate the public comment, I think sometimes we just should give each other a little space to get the job done. In this case, it seems like we're talking about getting the job done, and I don't think there's any objection to that.
no,
Right?
not for me.
Okay. So, shall we move on then to future agenda items?
Work plan.
So our future agenda item would be to review the document that you create or the work plan that you create and move it to a vote or, yeah. And then I don't know if this would be a future agenda item, but we have talked about the different types of data that we plan to review. Will any of that be available to us at the next meeting, or would that be post the approval of our work plan?
Actually receiving the data would be post approval of the work plan.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
We have another public comment. This time it'll be 1 minute. Mr. Garrett Pingwell, go ahead.
Future item, just a staff report on the, an update on the fentanyl lawsuit case that the city attorney had got permission to get involved in by city council a few months ago. So it'd be nice to get a staff report on what the city of Albany's budget is, how much money the city of Albany gets to spend regarding fentanyl awareness in our community, a fentanyl resource center, possible training for people, and you know, where a supply of Narcan can be given out to the community members, maybe a fire station or police department. Just where's the stash of Narcan going to be, and things like that. So basically just a staff update of what's going on with the lawsuit and how much money the city of Albany is entitled to. Thank you. Keep up the good work, everybody. Enjoy your break.
Thank you.
So, next meeting?
And the next meeting is, as I mentioned earlier, there's no meeting in August. The following meeting will be on September, hold on a second, 21st at 7 p.m.
All right. Well, it looks like we're adjourning then.
And the meeting is adjourned at 8:53 p.m.
Got to get you a gavel.
Break, everybody.